The presentations are over. Everybody is gathering on the balcony for the cocktail hour here, and we have our last interview of the day. Please welcome Jen Makris. Thank you for joining
Thanks
us.
for having me.
Absolutely. So you are a member of CLAB
I
already,
am.
correct? Awesome. So it is great to have you on the show because we love when our members take advantage of being on the show. All of you on the leadership team that I'm talking to that I offer to once a month and never take me up on my offer. Not that I'm sore about that or anything, but thank you for taking me up on the offer to be on the show because this is what this show is for. So we had a little chat before the show because I wanted to get familiar with what you do so we can have a coherent conversation, right? I'm actually really enthralled with what you do because I've thought about this, but I've never thought about it before. At the end of the day, we've talked to payment processors today. We've talked to people who want to do credit cards in the industry, and everyone's trying to go to this cashless payments. But this industry is truly cash dependent, very heavily cash dependent, and lots of cashes, and especially in the early days. So what you do is you handle the logistics of cash. Took me a second to figure that out, but you explained it. So can you walk into that? Because I feel like for a dispensary, you're one of the most important pieces of their operation.
Totally. So thanks, Todd. And absolutely, the cannabis cash piece is often overstepped and not thought about till the 11th hour because product is king, right? Product is king in that scenario, but so is cash. There will always be cash, at least in our lifetime. But to your point, many processors and people on the digital payment side are pushing that hard. But still, for those that don't want to be tracked, that don't want to have that digital record, that digital footprint, they will still transact in cash. So what I offer to the space is kind of unique in that how are you establishing those financial relationships? So that's step one. That's a premature step. Step two is logistically speaking, how are you getting that cash from your financial industry, or excuse me, financial institution, your bank, to your retail operation? And then once it's in the retail operation, how are you handling it? So what are the operating procedures around handling it, securing it, making it more efficient? So what's usually a manual process, I'm counting out my drawer for the day, I'm counting out my deposit at the end of the day. I help to automate that process, close the ecosystem around cash on site, and then help bundle it, package it, prepare your deposit, and get it out to the bank.
So how many Navy SEALs do you employ?
Oh my goodness. None to my knowledge. Why do you ask? Are they like dropping
I mean,
like bags of cash into the ocean and going to retrieve it for their trainings?
I don't know. I would imagine that if you had large amounts of cash, that you would want somebody trained to protect it.
Like legit security.
Exactly.
So securing the cash with hardware is my area of specialty, but also bridging the gap around securing it with transit, right? Armored transportation, just discrete transportation of cash. Please, 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 owner operators, managers in cannabis, do not put it in the back seat of your car, in the trunk of your vehicle, and drive it to the bank every day at 4 p.m. Highly, advise against that for your safety. Your life is important to me. So let's put some measures in place to keep you and your staff safe, and also maximize the time in which you are able to be customer facing, customer experience, and limiting the amount of time you're having to count cash.
Yeah. And again, it's amazing to me because this is something, again, I have not put in much thought until just now. And that's what's nice about doing it at these trade shows. But it is such a cash intensive business. Like, what are some of the things that you've seen in the industry? Obviously, you said putting it in your car every day, but I imagine like when you open a dispensary at first, you don't think about the transportation of cash. Like, cash heavy businesses don't really exist. And it's the baby boomer generation that still own those businesses that are taking the thick ass bags. Exactly.
Bag.
Or even the bank bags and taking that to the bank every night, even though it's locked up. Like, so what do you see with dispensaries? Like, is there a progression? Like when they first start, they're giving it to Scott, who on his way home from work every day because he passes by the bank and he's taking, I don't know, a couple $100,000 in cash or $50,000 in cash. And I don't even know what the average dispensary would hold on hand.
What happens if Kevin was the name you used? What happens if he gets in an accident? Now, who's insuring that cash? Who's responsible for that cash? What happens there? So there's so many components, and I enjoy what I do so much because it is one of the least thought about areas
It is
around cannabis retail operators. So I don't, I've always had a passion for the plant, but professionally speaking, my area of expertise and my experience come from the logistics space, the banking space. And so bringing that all together to provide this education around what to do with cash has been awesome because A lot of people, it's what you don't know, or you don't even think about, to your point.
It's a unique experience for sure. So what would you recommend to people in the industry as they're getting started? Like, what are the safest ways to make sure that this happens efficiently and it's something that, becomes like second nature? Because cash, like you said, it can disappear. It's not, there's no digital footprint of it. So
You need to have visibility, right? Transparency around the ecosystem of cash, like I had mentioned. But first and foremost, call me. Right. Let's have a conversation. How can I help you? How can I bridge those gaps or make those connections both on the banking side, the logistics side, and then internal processes to make, like I said, to optimize the on-site use of cash, provide visibility, which the banks want to see. They want to see the reporting. They want to see, I can show you how many times it's been touched and how it went into your deposit and time stamped and verified and all of those things. I love to help connect those dots.
how much, like, when we talk about the average dispensary, like, how much cash does an average dispensary have on hand?
Sure. So, by market, it varies. There are, my operators that do hundreds of
We're just
thousands,
helping so many thieves do their due diligence right now. Yep. Go on.
but I want to stay ahead of them. That's why we
Yes.
need to have those conversations, one step ahead of the bad guys, because
So
they're out there.
they are. So, like, on average,
Yeah. So my largest customers transact in cash, right? And there are cash only dispensaries.
Mhm.
And in light of the cashless ATM situation that just occurred on last
I
Friday.
think a lot more went back to them pure cash.
Correct. So, and how do we navigate through that when you can't use debit as an option for those customers? So, to answer your question, my largest customers do cash transactions of over $300,000 a day, which
Okay.
is
Wow.
amazing.
Yeah.
New Jersey's coming online, and that's a great area in the Northeast for me to have a lot of business in. But the smaller, single unit operators, they may do, 20K a day. And I'll tell you, my sweet spot where there's a true ROI per store location is about 14 to 16K in daily transactions
Okay.
in cash. And then anything north of there, of course, we can support.
So, I mean, when you go
From
in,
a hardware perspective, let
got
me
it.
just clarify too. So, inside the internal operating cash process, you need to have equipment to automate that process. You're never taking the human element completely out of it, but if I can support or if I can introduce some sort of technology and hardware to, again, automate that process, it makes it more efficient.
Okay.
And that's where the customers will see a big labor savings and cost savings as well.
So, I mean, is there an issue in the industry with dispensaries keeping too much cash on
For
hand or
sure.
not even bringing it to the bank? And like, because I know a lot of them actually will buy old banks because there's a vault there.
Yeah.
And are they keeping it in their own vaults instead of dealing with an actual bank?
So in the wild, wild west days back, and especially out west, absolutely. And does it still happen? Absolutely. Is it happening less and less? Yes, of course. And of course, we're talking about the legitimate market, the
Yeah.
legal market, and we can spend time about the other market another time, another day. But yeah, so we want to eliminate the on-site inventory of cash and get it to an operational par level.
Okay.
That just creates a lot more risk and exposure of cash and theft and robbery and all those things. So, I want to help protect, like I said earlier, your life is valuable. I want to help protect the safety of the staff, the safety of the customers too. And we want to limit as many liabilities on site as possible. And that includes removing the cash. And the banks might have a requirement of how often that deposit needs to reach them. So we'll take all of those things into consideration.
Okay. Jen, how can people find you?
Yeah, Jen Makris, actually Jennifer at CannabisCashQueen.com.
Great URL.
And yeah, absolutely. So I look forward to connecting with anybody. Find me on LinkedIn.
CLAB member, everybody. If you're a member of CLAB, you want to be on this show, reach out to us.